But as far as weapons used on Flight 11, according to the details conveyed about the hijacking through phone calls by two stewardesses, knives and mace were also used, as well as the appearance of a bomb or explosives. But specifically, a gun was also used, which it's believed that passenger Daniel Lewin was shot instead of stabbed. As reported in the Village Voice in 2005, the FAA issued an executive summary of what went on board Flight 11. The report read, "The American Airlines FAA Principal Security Inspector, PSI, was notified by Susan Clark of American Airlines Corporate Headquarters that an onboard flight attendant contacted American Airlines Operations Center and informed them that a passenger in seat 10B had shot and killed a passenger in seat 9B at 9:20 a.m. The passenger killed was Daniel Lewin, shot by passenger Satam al-Sakambi. One bullet was reported to have been fired." The 9/11 commissioners, on Staff Statement Number 4, the 4 flights, admitted that from the crash sites of all 4 official planes in the attacks of September 11th, that regardless of the anomalies outside the proposed theory of box cutters, conveyed by flight attendants and passengers, such as with mace, knife, and bombs, that there's no way of proving either case being used, but that it seems unlikely that one of the teams would depart from the tactical discipline of the plotters' mutual strategy. But mainly for firearms used on Flight 11, it states, "Finally, though it appears erroneous at this point in the investigation, staff continues to develop information on how the gun story may have come to be reported. Again, we stress our investigative work, including on the issues we have discussed today, is by no means complete. Our investigation continues." Only 2 people are recognized as having made calls, which were both flight attendants Betty Ong and Madeline Amy Sweeney. On the Moussaoui exhibit flight phone call chart, 4 other calls are made by unknown passengers that provide no phone or seat numbers or how long the calls were made. Sweeney made 5 calls and Ong made 1 call that was recorded and 27 minutes long, with long gaps of silence due to Ong breaking concentration with what was unraveling on board. Portions of Ong's call were frequently demonstrated on the news later, which indicates that the phone was connected all the way to the point of impact into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. During her call, which also connected to American Airlines Operations Center, Ong provided information about lack of communication with the cockpit, lack of access to the cockpit, and passenger injuries.
Okay, my name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on Flight 11.
Okay.
And the cockpit is not answering their phone. And there's somebody staffed in business class, and we can't breathe in business class. Somebody's got mace or something.
Can you describe the person that you said someone is what in business class?
I'm sitting in the back. Somebody's coming back from business. If you can hold on for 1 second, they're coming back. They want to know who's staffed who, you know? I don't know, but Karen and they got stabbed. Okay, our number 1 got stabbed. Our purser is stabbed. Nobody knows who stabbed who, and we can't even get up to business class right now because nobody can breathe. Our number 1 is stabbed right now.
Okay.
And our number 5, our first class passengers are first class galley flight attendant and our purser has been stabbed. And we can't get up to the cockpit. The door won't open. Hello?
More important to point out is that the audio recording of this call has been publicly released but is edited. But the follow-up recording to American Airlines emergency line by Nidia Gonzalez of American Airlines at the Raleigh Reservation Center, who had Ong on the phone, conveyed that Ong at least detailed 2 hijackers by seat numbers in first class, that they were sitting in 2A and B. But stewardess Madeline Amy Sweeney read off 4 passenger seat numbers as hijackers and also stated they had a bomb. According to parts of the transcript reported by Gail Sheehy of the New York Observer February 16, 2004, in stewardess ID'd hijackers early, transcripts show, "Amy, this is Michael Woodward. The American Airlines flight service manager had been friends with Sweeney for a decade, so he didn't have to waste any time verifying that this wasn't a hoax. Michael, this plane has been hijacked." Miss Sweeney repeated. Calmly, she gave him the seat locations of 3 of the hijackers, 9D, 9G, and 10B. She said they were all Middle Eastern descent, and one spoke English very well. Sweeney indicates that she thinks there were only 3 hijackers on Flight 11, telling James Sayer, a staff assistant, that the hijackers were in seats 9C, 9G, and 10B. Later transcripts indicate the changes on the seat numbering, including an additional 4th seat, 9D, although eventually a seat gets allocated for Atta, according to the FBI document T7B10 FBI 302s, Olson FDR 302s, Michael Woodward 372, page 5, from 9/11/2001. The hijackers were sitting in seats 10B, 9C, and 9G, or 9D and 9G. Sweeney described the hijackers as three Middle Eastern males. One of the males spoke good English, and another spoke poor English. There was never any mention of a fourth or fifth hijacker, especially for the unusual scenario that was going on during the hijacking between the stewardess's ongoing lack of communication to the cockpit. However, apart from seat 10B, these seat numbers are different from those registered in the hijackers' names. The 5 hijackers on Flight 11 had been in seats 2A, 2B, 8D, 8G, and 10B, according to the 9/11 Commission report. Of course, we already know they released flight manifests for 19 hijacker names from the 4 flights on September 14th, and there were anomalies of not having the entire set of passenger and seat numbers provided per hijacking suspect. But more significantly in anomalies and inconsistencies is previously in the estimation of hijackers per plane, when it was only stated as 18 hijackers on September 13th. And if all the hijackers boarded as the official story says, just as normal passengers but with weapons, there should be no dilemma to get a proper roster of hijacking conspirators per plane announced the following day, September 12th, by FBI and Attorney General, so long as the terrorist hijackers use their real names as proclaimed.
And there is a possibility some hijackers pose as pilots to gain access to cockpits.
And when considering the false identities that authorities allowed the news media to start showing by September 15th and were detracting days after, is a likely indication authorities covered up how some of the hijacking suspects gained unrestricted access from both flights at Logan, even disguised as airline employees. Because logically, the FBI would have had Logan Security CCTV video recordings in possession that would have included angles filming boarding gates of Flights 11 and 175, simply capturing all 10 hijackers boarding as passengers. And it also really made no sense how could they show mistaken photos of hijackers when they should have been able to simply compare them from Logan, and even cases of mistakes done to Flight 93 at Newark Airport. But this is not what we are seeing as far as the correct flight manifest, especially not by September 14th, as ABC News demonstrates models of the hijacked airliners, showing Flight 11 corroborating with at least flight attendant Madeline Amy Sweeney's phone call, where she read off only 4 hijackers riding as passengers assigned by seat numbers.